All right, so Bitcoin has been seemingly just down only. We look bearish on the structural sort of aspect of it. We look bearish on just like the macro news. It's just nothing seems to move the price of Bitcoin. I've been getting asked a lot of questions, right? Like, should I be scaling into the market right now? If I should, what should I be buying? What is openclaw? How can I make money from this? Because openclaw has really changed the way that I've kind of optimized my work setup. So I'm going to touch on those two topics, and then I'll probably make separate videos depending on whatever you guys would like me to basically create, right? So obviously Bitcoin has been in a downtrend. I think that the markets are just overall looking bearish. We're on the cusp of basically a war with Iran, right? I think that that's pretty much the general consensus. I don't want to get too much into like politics because, frankly, it's not really a point, right? Like, things are going to happen the way they're going to happen. And the best thing that you can do, and what I always preach is, make as much money as you can so that the macro environment and the geopolitical sphere doesn't really affect you, right? Because it's a sad reality that we don't really have a lot of power when it comes to just everything going on, right? That being said, I'm still looking at investments. I've been basically dollar cost averaging into the market. I've been scaling into basically just like Bitcoin, Solana, and a few other altcoins at this point. Not really a lot of sense and just like taking on, much more risk. Obviously there's like some stocks that kind of look attractive in my opinion. I don't think that the AI like SaaS apocalypse is really going to come, into fruition. I don't think that that's really going to happen. I do think that there's going to be a lot of market share that's going to be taken up through things like openclaw and just AI in general. But I think that we're a ways away from that, and I'm not too concerned. Obviously I've been bullish on NVIDIA. I think Google's been making all the right decisions. I'm pretty impressed with Google, if I do say so myself. Obviously, I don't think like Tesla and NVIDIA, I don't think that they're going to be going anywhere. I think that those are going to be kind of like the horses that I would bet on when it comes to just AI and stocks. And they've been pretty much, consolidating and kind of going down as well. So those are kind of entering in some of my buy zones, but, I'm kind of favoring a little bit more towards like crypto and Bitcoin right now, just because they're down so much relative to everything else that's been kind of, going on with the markets, right? You guys know that I've kind of been in precious metals just a little bit. I was talking about gold about 2 years ago. I'm not super crazy about gold. I do think that that's going to be more sustainable when it comes to the price action versus something like silver that's been a lot more volatile. But, I don't really dabble too much in precious metals. Like, obviously they've made a hell of a run, but I've been in Bitcoin for, almost 10 years at this point. And, obviously gold and silver, they've outperformed, pretty much everything short term. Stocks has even outperformed crypto. But the bread and butter of my whole portfolio is basically crypto. That's what I kind of specialize in. So, Jesus, I can hear a siren. So sorry if y'all can hear that. Anyway, so that's kind of like what I'm doing with my investing strategy. Now, I do anticipate that we're going to go into this downturn. I don't know how bad that's necessarily going to be. If I had to guess, and going off of like, 4-year cycles, kind of how the whole macro environment's kind of, laying out. We had the FOMC minutes today where basically we're just in a really weird scenario where, people are talking about rate hikes. They're talking about maybe 2 interest rate cuts this year. Just a lot of things kind of up in the air. We have the Warsh, who's like the new Fed chair, who's going to be stepping in. And I don't think that the market's like that very much. I don't really know why he was picked, but whatever. The best we can do is just kind of go with it. So I wonder, could this be a similar 4-year cycle where we see kind of like a little bit of a rally kind of going into like the summer, probably like some downturn, and then we kind of find some like bottom, maybe sometime September, October-ish maybe. So, for the foreseeable future, I am looking to dollar cost average, but I'm not trying to put all my eggs in one basket or just throwing everything in all at once, right? And that's something that people usually do. They get really anxious and they're just like, I want to buy everything right now. I want to be, into the market. I just don't want to think about it. That's fine. But, it's very possible that we could look for like a 30, 40, 50% correction even on Bitcoin. So again, I wouldn't be rushing into this. I would just kind of take a kind of like a marathon approach. You never want to just like go right into everything. So that's the first question. Now, second question, openclaw, what is it? How do I use it, right? I think that, I think it's a little bit premature with how everything is kind of shaping out with like AI and things of this nature. Kind of like my general thoughts is, obviously I got like the Mac Mini. I did not want to do like a virtual private server or anything of that nature. I didn't want to put it on any existing computers that I have because I'm very skeptical when it comes to like the actual like potential of like what these kind of agents and systems can do. Those of you that don't know, you can basically, input this in like your terminal of your computer, and it basically has access to everything that you give it access to. So it can read like emails, it can send text, it can make apps, it can do any kind of like optimization. I think, in my opinion, like the best use case that I've kind of seen is it kind of takes care of like all of your desk work. Like if you have to do like maybe files, I'm trying to see what I can do with like Polymarket and maybe like some crypto trading, mixing it with like some algorithms and stuff like that. It can also vibe code for you, but it's a little bit complex and nuanced because obviously there's different systems, right? Like you want to have basically like, it could be like Claude, which could be like, I think it's like Opus now, which is like the main driver. But then you can also use like API plugins such as like ChatGPT. You can use Grok of XAI. You can use Codex. You can use different kind of like inputs to basically optimize whatever you're trying to do with it. And I guess like, there's a lot to kind of like unpack with this. It's very, very complex. So I'm probably gonna have to make a separate video on this. But the long and short of it is, in my opinion right now, I think that there's going to be a lot of scalability when it comes to doing this, because now you have a situation where you have like OpenAI now taking on one of the main drivers of openclaw, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that we're going to have a lot of competition when it comes to these sort of agents, kind of like agentic trading, not just trading, right? But like obviously there's going to be a lot of stuff. Like I think Coinbase came out with some sort of what is it like? I think it's like a wallet for like agents to kind of trade. So I do think that that could be bullish for crypto, but I'm kind of digressing and kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent here. But another bottleneck I see people running into is obviously when you're using these different kind of API keys, it costs a lot of money with credits. So people are spending $200 to $300 on different subscriptions, and based on like what you're using it for, you basically have to come up with money to pay for these credits every single day. So I do think that that's going to be something where if you give it some time, I think that they're going to make it, infinitely cheaper, right? So I wouldn't be too, what I would do is like research kind of like what you can do, because the possibilities are like endless, right? Like I know people that they code their own apps on this, they make like their companies. It's basically like an extension of you where, you can text it, you can prompt it to do whatever you want, you can improve it. It's not like ChatGPT or anything like that, where you have to consistently like remind it of like how you want things to be sort of answered or how you want to be, I guess, treated, right? You can input like very specific prompts, and it's really good at remembering that. So it's literally just a virtual assistant that's like a real assistant, if you want to kind of put it that way. So I'm gonna probably make a separate video based on just like different use cases that I currently use it for. But it's something that I think is, there's a lot of hype around it. There's no doubt about that, but I think it's pretty early on. And I think a lot of people are still kind of figuring out, how can this benefit, each person like individually, right? Because I think that if you're like a company that has a lot of bookkeeping or a lot of things that's like file based or like emails, automations, I think that it's very, very helpful. But realistically, if you're just like the person that maybe you're not, CEO of a company, or you're not doing that kind of work, it's not really too necessary in my opinion yet. I think that there's a lot of things that you'll be able to implement, or it'll really bridge the gap with, if you have a creative mind where you're not able to create like apps because you need developers and you don't know how to code. I think it's going to help you a little bit with that end. But again, I think it remains to be seen. I think everything is really expensive right now. So I will kind of just wait and see how they kind of scale this to make it cheaper and more available for like the everyday customer. There's already like a lot of implementations with, I believe, OpenAI. I think that they're going to kind of create this easier sort of way to adopt this on a mass scale for just like your everyday person. So or just be on the lookout for that. Sorry. So anyways, to wrap everything up, I think that, obviously if this whole war with Iran breaks out, very bearish for the markets. Definitely you can look to hedge, you can look to just hold on and maybe have a really good opportunity of buying cheaper. I don't really know what's going to happen. I think that if it's like something that everyone's anticipating, you could have a scenario where it just doesn't happen, right? But I don't know. Nothing would surprise me at this point. I think that's very fair to say. And I still remain very bullish on Bitcoin and crypto. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think we've seen this kind of sentiment usually every single 4-year cycle. This is going to be my 4th one at this point. So with that being said, not too crazy or worried about crypto. Just kind of comfy and mostly spot, maybe a little bit of hedges with like maybe leverage short positions or buying puts against various assets that I'm invested in. And yeah, just kind of experimenting in the AI and stock world as well. So I'm going to continue to update you guys with what I'm personally doing. If you have any questions, as always, make sure you drop in the comments. With that being said, I'll see you all soon. Bye.